Hello and welcome to WarrenThornton.com. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to WarrenThornton.com on a day where we have probably gone as close as we possibly can now to finally thinking that there is going to be no peace deal under any circumstances whatsoever. Now, we're going to get into the reasons for that, and I'm going to go through it with you bit by bit so that we all know exactly what is going on. Now, this is the title of tonight's show. Why are they asking the losers what they want? And that is absolutely key to what we need to talk about tonight. Very, very simply, we're going to go through some of the stuff that's being said by people, some of the nonsense that has been put forward, and what we are talking about in terms of anybody doing any peace deals whatsoever around the globe. And we're going to be talking about the budget. We'll also be talking about China's new rocket. We'll be talking about what is happening in Guinea-Bissau, or Basso, I should say. We'll also be talking about Rachel Reeves. We'll be talking about Nigel Farage. But I believe that this subject is absolutely key and paramount. So let me talk about, first of all, what I believe is important here. I'm going to give you some numbers straight away. From the losses that we have had when it comes to Ukraine today. Okay, so Ukraine. This is just in the last week. This is today's losses. In the center group of forces, 450 dead Ukrainians. In the Vostok group of forces, 240 dead Ukrainians. The Zapad group of forces, 230. The Yug group of forces, 275. The Sevo group of forces, 180, and in the Dnieper group of forces, 85 dead Ukrainian soldiers. Now, that makes a total of 1,460 soldiers each day, which is around about 1.5 or 1 and a bit soldiers per square mile or per square kilometre of the actual front. It's around about 1 soldier per minute that Ukraine are losing on the battlefield. That is correct. It's 1 soldier per minute. Now, we've been telling you for months and months and months, they're losing round about 1,500 soldiers every single day, without fail, without question. So before we get into all the politics, let's get into some numbers here. Now, when the original war kicked off, the original, shall we say, in February 2022, Ukrainian armed forces were around about 80,000, just over 80,000 men. They had another 760, 700, 800,000 in reserve. They were all called up. So the actual amount when it really started, not after they beat back the Luhansk and Donetsk, shall we say, forces, when the Russians really started to get involved, round about the summer, round about April, they didn't need too many men. They mobilized these men, so they had 1 million in their armed forces. They then put another 1.2 million on reserve once the battle started to go the wrong way. And by the time we came to the summer offensive of 2023, they had 1 million men in the field and another 1.2 million in reserve, which were quickly called up. That made around 2.2 million soldiers that they had available to them. They then had another 3, shall we say, drafts, or should we say call-ups, which amounted to another 1.4 million men. That gives you 3.6. Then, of course, we had the press gangings, and we also have had over the months and years that this war is going on, another ton of mercenary soldiers and various people coming in to fight on the Ukrainian side. So in all, Ukraine have had around 4 million men, and we've said this before, that they've been losing men at such and such a rate. And by August of 2026, they will be down to around 400,000 men. Therefore, will not be able to hold on to various territories. And we're already seeing that with a very, very rapid fall of Pokrovsk. At Minorad, there's another 4,000 soldiers in there. And there's a lot more that are going to get killed very quickly in Konstantinika, in Siversk, and many other places. If you were with us yesterday, we showed you the maps. We showed you all these people that are going to be, that are literally fighting and dying. And the fact that they're beating these people up and throwing them onto the front line is causing even more of a catastrophe. And this is something that, in amongst all of the rhetoric that is being called, shouted out at the moment, is being totally and utterly lost. The decimation of the Ukrainian forces is happening every single day. So when we do get into the politics of this, you'll understand the total lunacy that is behind what we have to tell you tonight. And it is very, very straightforward. So we're talking 2 million dead. We're talking, where, of course, BlackRock told them it was a good idea to shove them into ovens and burn the bodies. They've also buried them out in the fields, where we've even had reports of wolves digging them up. And, of course, what we're talking about here is 2 million dead, 750,000 soldiers who are injured. And we're talking another close on 200,000 that have deserted, and another 100,000 in captivity. So the state of Ukraine's army as it stands at the moment is around 650,000 soldiers. Sean Murphy.
Well, those losses, Warren, to be perfectly honest, are not sustainable.
No.
And the problem is, of course, is they've used up practically every person that is going to likely be of fighting age by press ganging them and conscripting them. And there's going to be nobody left unless they, European countries, deport all the Ukrainian males, and America deports all the Ukrainian males that could possibly be of fighting age. They're not going to have anybody left. There's nobody to replace the losses.
What did we say over 2 months ago, Sean, that they would start repatriating Ukrainians back to Ukraine because there was a shortage of men? They've already drafted.
Yeah, absolutely, and they've started that.
Yep, exactly, they have. And anybody who, just in case, who's not up on this, they were drafting 60-year-olds. And, of course, there are very, very simply what has been happening. Karas is absolutely right there. Few stories circulating about ICE sending some back. Now, very, very simply, what has happened here is, for some minor misdemeanor, they have suddenly been thrown back to the areas where they came from in the first place. And that means that they're going back to Ukraine. Now, when they go back to Ukraine, they are met by the military commissioners at the border. So this isn't like going back and just settling back into life. This is being met by the military at the border. Now, we know of at least 73 soldiers that have already suffered this fate, or 73 people. Nilus.
Well, I've said it before, but I'm just going to reiterate what Gaslighting Gillingham has said. It's a culling of the Ukrainian people. And that's basically, they're being basically culled because the Orthodox Christian, 85% of Ukraine is Orthodox Christian. And I think it's, you could say it's a war for resources, but it's also a war for the spiritual nature of Europe.
You could do. It's not a bad point. Louis Bastos.
I'm sure that the people receiving them in Ukraine will be the Azov battalion to make sure they put them in front.
Yeah, the trouble is with the Azov battalion is most of their best soldiers have already been slaughtered, and the rest are patrolling the borders, throwing people back into the line. Now, when we're talking about this, it is really important that people understand that there are at least 90 people that have tried to swim the Tees River in freezing cold conditions and have drowned trying to avoid the draft. There are many, many that have climbed over fences, that have been caught trying to run away. And there are numerous videos of people being grabbed on the streets, beaten and thrown onto the front line. We've shown you numerous videos of this. We've shown you numerous videos of Ukrainians shooting and being told to shoot their own soldiers for retreating. We've shown you numerous videos of Ukrainians slaughtering citizens who do not want to retire to the west of that area. Louis Bastos, you've got your hand up again?
Yeah, Stalin did that in the Second World War. Any guy running backwards, Stalin's people would shoot them.
Yeah, exactly that. And where we have a major problem here, and this is a major problem, and I want somebody to explain this to me. There's no question that we've had 4 million men mobilized by Ukraine in total over that time. Remember, they started with 80,000, built it to 1 million and then 1.2 million that were then called up. That made 2.2 million. And then the 1.4 in the conscriptions going on then, and then the beating up of various people, chucking a couple of 100,000 on the front line. And then, of course, now the Ukrainian, and then, of course, you've got the Mercs on top of that. Now, the Ukrainians have had, quite clearly, by their own admission, 200,000 desertions. There's almost 100,000 in captivity with Russia. That's 300,000. They, by their own admission, say there are 750,000 that are dead. That are injured. That leaves well over, should we say, 2 million men that have gone missing. Their basic army. So you're looking. That's 3 million men, well over 3 million men. And you're looking at around about 600,000. Now, they're losing 640,000, I think, at the last count they had that were available to go into the field. Now, they're losing 1,500 soldiers per day. Per day. That is 30-odd thousand. That is a brigade and a half of literally, you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 brigades a week, a month that they're losing. You know, they're losing well over 5,000 soldiers. At the last repatriation, there was 1,000 Ukrainian soldiers handed back, 30 Russians. The people who are telling you that the Russians are losing just as many men as Ukraine are lying through their teeth. Once more, we're going to explain it for you before we get into the politics of this, because it's important that you know the numbers, because when we get into the politics of this, you will understand the sheer lunacy that has come down today from some of the stuff that we have heard from our source in the State Department. Now, very simply, when we talk about the numbers of the people, first of all, that is a major, major problem for the Ukrainians and being thrown onto the front line. Now we are talking about more money being spent. We are talking about more people, more unnecessary lives being wasted to carry on this war. And I'm telling you now, the peace deal, the 28-point peace plan was never intended to be a peace plan. We have that not only from me and our sources that we have in Ukraine, but we also have that from our source in the State Department. Now, we have told you, have we not, time and time again, don't take too much notice of this peace deal. The Russians did not agree to it. They've never. Andrew Edge wants to talk. Andrew? Andrew, you got your mic on? Oh,
sorry, my fault.
Okay. So very, very simply, the plan was written on a fag packet, Vic. You're absolutely right. So the idea was, here we go with this peace plan. Now, if they genuinely wanted peace, the very first thing you would do with a peace plan is take it to the winners and say, is this acceptable as a get out of jail free, or shall we say a cessation of any hostilities? They did not do that. They took the peace plan to the Ukrainians. Just get this into your heads for a minute. The Americans took the peace proposal they got to see if the Ukrainians were all right with it. And they literally, when Alaska happened, Trump said, what do you want? And the Russians said, we want these 3 things plus there's some bits and pieces that we need to discuss. Trump went, fine, I'll go away, I'll do a plan. Now, Witkoff went away and did that plan. He did it very, very quietly, and Rubio was not involved in that till the very last moment when he was told, and so were the war hawks that surround Trump. Now, you've got Witkoff, you've got J.D. Vance, who is keeping a very, very low profile and his head down, and Trump trying to, in some way, by doing, if you like, the art of the deal and trying to give some sort of financial incentive to Russia to stop this war from carrying on, because this is a war that's got out of hand. America overthrew Ukraine, overthrew the democratically elected government of Ukraine in 2014. You'll hear lots and lots of people talking nonsense. Go and check out the National Endowment for Democracy, Victoria Nuland, my Dan, you name it. We've got many videos you can go and check. Now, very, very simply, this war has now got out of hand to the point where they didn't think Russia would be winning, and Russia are winning. America are running out of weapons. Europe have run out of weapons. They've also run out of money to keep financing this. This is why they want to steal the Russian assets, but more of that later. Now, very simply, what's going to happen from here is the Ukrainians are just going to keep dying in vast numbers, as I've just said. Okay, but there is no doubt whatsoever, and I'm going to name these people here now: Susie Wild, Keith Kellogg, and his daughter, never forget her, who is running a charity stroke NGO that repatriates the bodies of American mercenaries fighting inside Ukraine. That's the guy that they sent to do the first peace deal. Okay, that's what his daughter runs, just so you're aware. And Kellogg has always been a fan of Ukraine. Now, the moment that this peace deal was sent by the Americans to the Ukrainians, they leaked it and they asked for Marco Rubio to be part and parcel of the delegation that met with the Ukrainians. Now, Marco Rubio is a neocon, as dark as you like. Many people think he's not, but I've been warning about this for months and months and months and months. This is the viper in the bosom. This is the guy that Trump ultimately has to get rid of. If he doesn't, his presidency is over, because he is backed by Lindsey Graham. He is backed by Susie Wild. He is backed by CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and he is backed by all the generals and the neocons that are surrounding Trump. They've already got rid of people like Tulsi Gabbard. Vance is keeping a low profile. Nillis.
Yeah, I learned yesterday that Trump had viciously attacked both Massey and who's the other mega
Marjorie
man?
Taylor Greene.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, and the other one is I've forgotten his name.
Rand Paul.
Rand Paul, that's right. Yeah, he's viciously attacked them. He's called them little people. We're spelling little Liddle.
Yeah.
And he says they're not anything to do with me. And he's surrounding himself with Lindsey Graham and
Yes.
all these neocons. Trump's gone full on neocon, really. And
well,
one of the reasons.
What he's done is he's not listening to his base. And what he's done is he literally, what they've done is they've corralled him into a corner, because Susie Weiss makes sure that as the chief of staff, the only way to get to Trump is through her. And that's not going to happen. Tulsi Gabbard's already been hammered, and she's piped down when she turned around and said there was absolutely no reason to think that Iran were anywhere close to having nuclear weapons. And of course, they turned around and said, Trump turned around and said, she doesn't know what she's talking about. So she's been knuckled. And what we have now is Witkoff, who put together this deal with phone calls. And there were phone calls, but there were phone calls to say, look, this is what we're going to put on the table. And the Russians said, okay, we can discuss it. Okay. This is not, they certainly not finalized a peace deal or anything from Alaska. Just Witkoff turning around and saying, this is what we're thinking about putting forward. We can discuss it. Very simply, they then gave that to the Ukrainians, who leaked it straight away to the press, went running to the rest of Europe, and the rest of Europe has gone mildly potty, as they do. And of course, we're going to see more and more of that coming in. Let's let's get into some of this then, because I've talked for long enough about how bad this is. Okay. But we are going to start with somebody who Marco Rubio put into play. Now, there's been a lot of talk, but we managed to have a word today as to why Marco Rubio wouldn't meet with Kaya Kallas. And we were told that Kaya Kallas has a job to do for Marco Rubio, and it wouldn't be good for Marco Rubio to be seen with her. Now, don't get me wrong, Marco Rubio is very, very clever here. He has meetings with Kellogg, he has meetings with Lindsey Graham, and he has phone calls with Kaya Kallas. We can reveal that there's been at least 2 phone calls between Marco Rubio's State Department and Kaya Kallas. And if you don't believe me, Kaya Kallas has been doing the rounds today, and I'm going to show you exactly how busy she's been in the last 24 hours. Let's have a little look.
Good afternoon, everybody. We just met with the foreign ministers in the video format to discuss latest developments in ending Russia's war. Foreign Minister Sibiha also joined us online to brief from the situation or regarding the situation from Ukrainian side. It is important that we continue to support Ukraine and pressure Russia. That is what we are working on. Everyone welcomes United States push for peace. We all want this war to end, but how it ends also matters. We must keep in mind that there is one aggressor and one victim. An immediate and unconditional ceasefire must be the first step to ending the war, but right now we see zero indication that Russia is ready for a ceasefire. Russia is not winding down its military machine, but ramping it up. We still need to get from a situation where Russia pretends to negotiate to a situation where they need to negotiate. We are getting there. Russia's summer offensive failed. US and EU sanctions are having a huge impact on Russian economy. Energy revenues, economy equally are shrinking. Russia is losing cash and troops. And to increase the chances for peace, we need to increase also the pressure on Russia. The notion that Ukraine is losing is also flat out false. If Russia could conquer Ukraine militarily, it would have already done so by now. Putin cannot achieve its goals on battlefield, so he will try to negotiate his way there. To secure the best outcome for Ukraine and Europe, we have to stay the course but pick up the pace. This means more sanctions to deprive Russia of the means to fight and more military and financial support to Ukraine. In the European Council, we pledged to cover the financial needs for Ukraine for 2026 and 2027. There are, of course, several options on the table, as you know, but the reparations loan is the most clear-cut way to do this. It would send the strongest message to Moscow that it cannot wait us out, and we need to make this decision fast. We also welcome the work of the Coalition of the Willing to hammer out the details of military support to Ukraine and also what Europe as well as United States can offer. The European Union itself will make a major contribution to the security guarantees with funding, training and defense industry support. We are working on these details now, including the extension of our current missions in Ukraine. But security guarantees to Ukraine do not change the fact that the threat really here is Russia. In the last 100 years, Russia has attacked more than 19 countries, some as many as 3 or 4 times. None of these countries has ever attacked Russia. So in any peace agreement, we have to put the focus on how to get concessions from Russian side, that they stop aggression for good and do not try to change borders by force. There are rarely wars in the world where the situation is so clear-cut as it is here. We have one aggressor and one victim. The focus should be on what Russia, the aggressor, must do, not what Ukraine, the victim, must sacrifice.
So there we are. We're playing the victim card. Sean Murphy.
Well, that's what she's doing, is playing the victim card. But
Yes.
in saying that, she's saying if Russia really wanted it, they could have finished off Ukraine much sooner. Uh, the thing is that Putin doesn't want to literally destroy Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. That's
No.
not in his objectives. It never was. He doesn't want to destroy Ukraine or the Ukrainian people, a lot of whom are Russian speakers and consider themselves Russian, whether they try to make it look as though they consider themselves Ukrainian. A lot of them are Russian speakers, and Putin doesn't want to smash Ukraine to bits. If he wanted to do that, he could have smashed Kiev to bits by now. He could
could have
literally do it, and there's no two ways about it. So she's talking a load of rubbish as usual, the way she always does.
Yep, absolutely. Louis Bastos.
Well, we start with this in Ukraine, eastern Ukraine. The aggressor was Ukraine against the ethnic Russians. That's number one. Number two, Russia came in because they were asked by eastern Ukraine to help. So there's no such thing as blaming Russia for what's happened, because it all started with the Ukrainians killing ethnic Russians in the eastern Ukraine. That's the matter.
Yes, you're absolutely right on that point. And of course, she's been coming out with more and more nonsense. We're going to show you something else in a minute, but first of all, we're going to have a little talk over this, because we have a real problem here, because she's now out there saying that she wants the assets, and tensions are flaring over Belgium's continued refusal to play ball with the EU's plan to tap immobilized Russian assets. Last night, Kaja Kallas mounted a forceful defense of the proposal in a private meeting with EPP lawmakers in Strasbourg, leaving several of them, as the Belgians would say, smarting. Now, the Belgian MP, Wouter Becker, reiterated Prime Minister Bart de Wever's concerns that fashioning a $140 billion loan for Ukraine would expose Belgium to unacceptable legal and financial risk. Now, the scheme remains Kallas and the Commission's option for keeping Ukraine afloat. She wondered why Belgium was so worried. This is directly from an MEP that she had a meeting with. She wondered why Belgium was so worried. Which court was Russia going to go to? Which judge would ever rule for Russia on this? Kallas also drew a comparison with Iraq's obligation to pay more than $50 billion in reparations to Kuwait after the 1990 invasion, not really remembering that Russia are not losing in this war. Another participant who was at the meeting said Kallas was incredibly condescending in her remarks. Remember, this is the woman who spilt a cup of coffee over the Chinese delegation, while a third described her tone as incredible. One non-Belgian MEP summed up the sentiment essentially as her saying, "Stop complaining." Kallas also pointed to her Estonian background, and two people said, implying she understands Russia better than the Belgians. Having presented the half-baked Friedrich Merz-inspired idea to leaders last month, the Commission has still not found a compromise to assuage Belgian fears. Kallas is hosting a video conference of foreign ministers today, where the loan is likely to be discussed. And just while we're on the subject of that, we have Ursula von der Leyen now, who has come out and said very, very simply that she is drafting a legal text document to seize the Russian assets. Can you believe that? Apparently, they're going to change the law so it will be legal to steal these assets from Russia. And very, very simply, Europe's coalition of the willing threw another ring of support around last night, saying it was solid and encouraging progress. And of course, the Euroactive columnist Simon Nixon wrote that his latest op-ed that Belgium's concerns are legitimate. The country faces real exposure to Russian retaliation, Euroclear, the Brussels-based clearinghouse, would shoulder uniquely high legal and financial risk, and the Commission's proposed mechanism has yet to be tested in court. EU leaders still hope to clinch an agreement on the loan in the European Council in December. So just to let you know that that is coming up. And of course, what they have failed to tell everybody, and of course, how can I put this? There is no scenario where European taxpayers pay the bill alone. The next step will be for the Commission to present a legal text. This is Ursula von der Leyen. Why do they object to Zelensky's theft of 100 million, basically, if they're ready to steal, 140 times more? And this is something that is a major problem as well. We'll get to Sean in a minute, but let's get into this really, really heavily here, because what is little known is the amount of frozen Russian assets around the world are nowhere near. They are higher than 330 billion, and they are nowhere near the amount of frozen assets that Europe currently has in Russia. And should they take that step, then Russia will take that money from those companies, those assets from those companies that are based still in Russia, that are frozen. That includes people like Coca-Cola, many, many corporations. And this is why there is so much of a problem here. Sean Murphy.
Well, to be perfectly honest, Warren, Kaja Kallas in the European Commission and the EU, to be honest, they couldn't give a damn about
they're criminals.
What happens to Belgium.
They couldn't care less.
Belgium collapses because of this. They couldn't give a toss. They're not interested. They are so focused. They couldn't care less that any country in Europe that collapses because of this stealing of these assets, they couldn't care less. And they couldn't care less about this clearing bank either. They couldn't care less.
And the nonsense about Kaja Kallas saying she understands Russian, she got that from her grandfather, who was, shall we say, a German sympathizer during the war. Louis Bastos.
In Belgium, we have the NATO headquarters and we have the European Union headquarters.
You do?
And this is why the Belgians are so reluctant to do anything, because they are scared that Russia will blow this place to pieces. I mean, I live 15 kilometers from NATO headquarters, and one of these bombs will wipe us out. And another thing is that most of the tax money in Belgium goes to pensioners. So the moment they try and use that here in Belgium, we got a lot of pensioners here in Belgium will retaliate and kick out the government.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into this a little bit, because there's a bit more of this, which is really, really important to know. That if they take, first of all, you've got if they take those assets. Now, would they go and bomb Belgium, as Louis just said there? Highly unlikely. But what will happen is Belgium will then be basically hauled through the court of public opinion, not only public opinion, but through the normal courts as well. And Kallas is saying, don't worry about it. But the trouble is, now get this, they are talking about the rest of Europe. If they can't get hold of that money, the rest of Europe paying enough money into a fund to keep Ukraine going for the next 3 years, which is roughly about 137 billion, which is roughly about the 140 billion that they want to seize in Russian frozen assets. Okay, they've already dipped into this money. If you think for 1 minute that 330 billion that they've been able to loan them, over 90 billion, if you think there is anywhere in the world that gives that rate of interest that you can then just use the interest alone, you are seriously deluded. There is no doubt whatsoever that the Russian assets have already been dipped into that are being held by other countries. Now, Belgium Euroclear turned around and said, as long as Europe signs up to take the fall for this along with us, we are happy to release those funds. Europe are not prepared to do so. So therefore, Euroclear will not clear that for it to be taken. Now, here's where we have a problem, because they are saying that the rest of the world, the rest of Europe, has to stump up the money to keep Ukraine going for the next 3 years. Now, they're happy to do that, but they're not happy to sign up to the fact that if they borrow that money from Euroclear, that they will then pay it back to Euroclear. So why not? Because that's the same amount of money they want to get from Europe. And the reason is because that money has already been spent. Okay? There is an amount of money out of that frozen money that they've got that is already spent. Euroclear just holds on to the largest portion of it. Okay? Euroclear has about 220 billion of it. The rest has been dotted all around Europe. That has already been dipped into. It's already been taken. Okay? That is why they are so adamant on getting the money from Euroclear. That is the reason why. And anybody thinks, and not only that, once they take that money, everybody else, including the Saudis have made it very, very clear indeed. All the states of the United Arab Emirates have made it very, very clear that they will not be leaving any of their money in Europe whatsoever. And it will cause great economic hardships. Now, what you have to remember is they're in between a rock and a hard place. They can't afford this war. They need someone to pay for it. They're paying America 3 to 4 times as much for LNG and gas and oil. Their economies are falling through the floor. If you notice today in Rachel Reeves' budget, there was a huge taxation in the UK. There was a budget today in the United Kingdom. And there was a huge taxation on the people of Great Britain. And a heck of a lot of that is being promised to Ukraine to continue this war. Go and check out the budget. We'll have a little bit on that later on today. So very, very simply, that is that portion taken care of. Nillis.
Yeah, I was amazed when I heard that the European Euroclear held 40 trillion euros worth of foreign investment.
Yes.
And that's incredible. That's 4 times the size of BlackRock.
Yes. If they take it out, Nillis, economies collapse around Europe. No question. So you're absolutely right. The amount of money being held is incredible.
Also, you briefly mentioned Coca-Cola there. But I know that the Coca-Cola franchises, it has franchised itself out in Russia.
It does.
And that was held by a Cypriot family. So that's going to affect further effects.
All you've got to do, Nillis, is go and look in the shops in Russia, and they've just put a different name on it. That's all, to get round the sanction. There are still huge assets in that country.
Well, I think you still get Coca-Cola actually in Russia.
You can get Coca-Cola. You can get McDonald's. It's just under another name. Everybody's saying, oh, it's under Russian control. No, it's been rebranded, and the money is still flowing between the two countries. Nothing gets in the way of making a profit, Nillis, ever. Always remember that. Money talk, BS walk. Lee Williams.
Just a quick one. Would that mean all the people that represent NATO and EU would actually be criminals that have spent this money? Because it's obviously not the people. Yeah.
Of course. But if Euroclear do it, you see, if Euroclear do it, 220 billion, it's very, very simply then they can throw Euroclear under the bus. Euroclear goes broke, and they set up a new banking system in which they turn around and go, okay, all those problems are now resolved. Please bring your money back. Are you with me? That's what is being lined up now. Nillis, you wanted another word on this, Nillis?
You can bet your bottom dollar that new banking system would be digital, wouldn't it?
Yes, of course it will. No question. Great call. But Callas also has been active. Now, we're going to get into what Rubio's put into motion. He's not just put Callas into motion, but they have literally lined up the whole of American media to go after Witkoff. But we'll get into that in a minute. Here's Callas once more doing the rounds.
There are some real potential wins for Russia in there, certainly in terms of having all sanctions lifted, and particularly in terms of being allowed to rejoin the G7 and make it the G8 once again. Is that something that you think should be allowed to happen?
No, definitely not. We can't go back to business as usual. I mean, how can you possibly imagine that? All the destruction, all the killing that they have done, and also, I mean, all the breaches of the international law, and then we just look away and say, oh, it's nothing. We just go and continue as before. I think it is important to keep in mind why, Russia is making a good face towards United States again, because they are actually under a lot of pressure. They want us to see that and think that, Ukraine is under a lot of pressure and they can't outlast. But actually, if you look at the facts, if you look how Russia's economy is doing, if you look how the sanctions on oil are working, if you look at the discussions that we have on the Russian frozen assets and the reparations loan, actually, they are very worried that, they need to get the good agreement now. That's why they are asking for the territories that they haven't even, conquered militarily. That's why they are asking all these things and putting the time pressure. Let's go fast so that actually, we would shift the focus and not understand that everybody's then discussing, what Ukraine should give away, whereas our focus should be on Russia, who is the aggressor in this case.
Now, let's sort this out. First of all, Kaya Kallis, those areas that you're talking about will soon be under Russian control. They are winning this war, and they're winning it by a mile. Secondly, Russia's economy is in no danger whatsoever. You are lying through your teeth. Why is Kaya Kallis lying? Well, Kaya Kallis, as you know, is a favourite of the NATO, or the North Atlantic Fellow Organization, which is this huge internet bunch of people who actually have their own meetings. They actually have their own, shall we say, conferences. They held one at the same time in Geneva as Kaya Kallis and Ursula von der Leyen and Victoria Nuland did when the summer offensive was going on. She's also known, along with Adam Kinzinger of the American Congress, is known for this NATO organization fundraises for the Azov Battalion, which are the neo-Nazis or the ultra-nationalists. And of course, so if you wanted to know where Kaya Kallis's thoughts lie, it is with a burning hatred of Russia. It has never changed. It has always been there, and is right up there with Ursula von der Leyen, right up there with Victoria Nuland, is right up there with Christopher Freeland of Canada, is right up there with Annalena Baerbock, of course, who has a neo-Nazi grandfather. Many of these do. And of course, Sanin, of course, the president of Finland. Nillis, Lee Williams first, then Nillis. Lee Williams.
Is all them people you mentioned, will they ever see the jail of the fraud, the lies, and everything about these people you mentioned in one sentence? Are they any good for people?
None of them will ever see the inside of a jail. And let me just add this before we bring Nillis in here. When we're talking about these neo-Nazis, we are talking about Marco Rubio sitting down in a conference room, okay, with literally the guy who is not only mired in corruption, Zelensky's right-hand man, but also has the crossed grenades as a shoulder patch, which he no longer wears since we pointed it out, which indicates the cross grenades of the Dirlewanger Battalion from the Second World War. And if you don't know who the Dirlewanger Battalion are, please just go and look it up online and see the atrocities that they committed on behalf of the Germans. Nillis.
Yeah, I don't know how the Bolsheviks treated the Baltic states, but what I do know is the Baltics, much of the hatred towards Russia is from what the Bolsheviks did in terms of forced starvations, taking people's property away, and collectivizations, destroying of the church. And it's ironic, really, that this hatred is directed towards Russia when the Ukrainian government is exactly the same. The Bolshevik government was over 85% Jewish, Zionist Jewish, and the same is haven't worked it out. I don't know the full things, but from Russian sources that I've heard, it's the same in Ukraine. Yeah, Zelensky is a Zionist Jew. His prime minister is, and most of his
Yeah, let's
government
not go
are as
too
well.
far down that road. Yeah, go on.
Right. Anyway, but the same. It's like they're blaming the Russians for what the Bolsheviks did, and the Ukrainians are doing the same thing.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Good call. Let's get into this bit then, because while we're talking about this, okay, while we're talking about people going, oh no, there's no such thing. Have a look at this. Just have a look at this.
Страху нехай не знає. Страху нехай не знає. Не знає, що таке вагання. Не знає, що таке вагання. Скріпи мій дух. Скріпи мій дух. Загартуй волю. Загартуй волю. Щоб сміло йшов я в бій. Щоб сміло йшов я в бій. Щоб віра була моя гранітом. Щоб віра моя була гранітом. Щоб зросла завзяття міць. Свята. Могутня. Соборна. Слава Україні. Слава нації! Україна! Україна! Україна!
Well, thanks to Lord Bebo for that. That is, as you saw, the black and the red flag. That is literally the symbol of the Azov battalions and the neo-Nazis. Louis Bastos, you wanted a word?
Those people are not in Ukraine, I'm sure. Those people are not in Ukraine.
Well, you may well be right there, because do you know that there are 47 camps around Europe that have Ukrainian youth movements in them, and they all have brown shirts, they all have uniforms. It's not like the Scouts, let's put it that way. And there are 10 of those in the UK. We've actually shown you where they are. Nilus.
I think that red and black flag originated in Nazi Germany, didn't it?
It did. It did. You're absolutely right. But of course, let's get back on track then. So when we talk about what is going on with this peace deal, there are 3 people that want this peace deal to go through. J.D. Vance is keeping very, very quiet. Witkoff is being attacked, as was Trump the last time he put forward a peace deal. And there are a myriad of people that do not want a peace deal with Russia. Try and get your head around this madness. They did not go to Russia with this peace deal as the winners and say, is this acceptable? They went to the losers, who then adjusted it and had Marco Rubio fly over to meet with a neo-Nazi head of the delegation of the Ukrainians and to change it. Now, let me tell you exactly what is in there. Zaporozhye nuclear power plant must be returned to Ukraine with America running it. That's now been altered from the original text. They refuse to recognize any of the Russian-held territories whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. The original Ukrainian armies, if we go back to the very, very beginning in February 2022, when the Ukrainian army wasn't at 1.2 million, when it wasn't at 1 million, and then, of course, at the end of the summer, it was 1 million plus 1.2 that was literally held in reserve, so 2.2 million in all. At the very start, there was around 75 to 82,000, I think it was, in the actual Ukrainian military. So the Ukrainians have turned around and said, and of course, Russia wanted them to have no more than 80,000 men. At the original peace agreement, they would have no more than 85,000 men. So they wouldn't mobilize anybody else. They didn't mind Ukraine having their army as it was, but they weren't allowed to grow it. And of course, that didn't help, because of course Ukraine did grow it. They grew it to 1 million men and 1.2 in reserve, which they then called up. Now get this, Ukraine have turned around and said that they are willing to settle for an army of 800,000 men. So rather than have the 80,000 that they originally had, and to be stopped from having any more than that with that agreement in 2022, they now will settle for 10 times that amount in their army. There is no way in hell that Russia are going to agree to any of that. They have also turned around and said that they are not going to change their constitution that says that they cannot join NATO. So that is a non-starter for them. So this peace deal is dead in the water. Instead of the Americans who started this war by literally overthrowing the government of Ukraine, started this war and turned around and saying, this is what you're going to accept, or they'll get rid of Zelensky. They tried pressuring Zelensky, of course, with the obviously with the money that's been stolen, and there is a lot to come from that as well. But where Trump's tried to do that, that's now being headed off at the pass, and they're throwing other people under the bus, like Umarov. Remember that one of the guys under investigation is Rustam Umarov, who tried to get the text of this document changed to say that all past transgressions will be forgiven, including any war crimes carried out or any corruption carried out by Ukrainian officials. Just remember that. So there's two people there who are mired in the corruption that Marco Rubio is quite happy to be friends and do deals with. Now, very, very simply here, what you have is a peace deal that is going nowhere. The West do not want it, okay? The European Commission do not want it. The European Union do not want it. Half or 3/4 of Trump's inner circle do not want it. None of the Rothschilds or the press or the banks want this. BlackRock don't want it, okay? And the Ukrainians certainly don't want a peace deal. So this war is going to continue. This so-called peace deal is dead in the water. And of course, many people have been trying to push this as the Ukrainians have been really, really good. And they've agreed to give up some of this, which they really shouldn't, because the Russians are such bad people. And they're going to then present that to the Russians, and the Russians are going to turn it down. And then there's going to be a new round of lunacy where they go, look, see, Ukraine were willing to do this. And the Russians, the big bad Russians, have turned it aside. So let's get into a couple of things that have been said by the Russians on this.
Я призываю все средства массовой информации проявлять максимальную ответственность. И сейчас ровно тот период, тот момент, когда нельзя поддаваться на провокации. Наши оппоненты большие мастаки и любители, особенно носители английского языка в разных точках мира, они до совершенства довели свою тактику вредить и мешать конструктивным процессам, где бы они ни развивались, если эти люди почему-то считают развитие этих процессов не отвечающих их узким, своекорыстным, эгоистическим интересам. Я не комментирую никакие утечки. Начнем с того, что на эту тему и вообще на тему так называемого мирного плана Трампа исчерпывающим образом высказался президент Российской Федерации. Было это на прошлой неделе. За прошедшие дни мы видели множество информационных вбросов, атак, нападений через британские СМИ, через соцсети на саму идею выхода на договоренности, причем договоренности, которые будут означать обращение в том числе к первопричинам этого конфликта. Мы не знаем о том, какова позиция на этот счет, окончательная, неокончательная, промежуточная, текущая, тех, с кем мы обсуждаем эту тематику. Мы отслеживаем публичные сигналы и заявления официальных лиц. Мы, безусловно, отмечаем такой тяжелый, эмоциональный и очень разогретый фон, который преднамеренно создается на Западе вокруг этого процесса. Это не помогает. Дипломатические усилия любые требуют тишины. Они могут быть результативны и продуктивны, когда мы минимизируем риски внешних воздействий. А здесь мы видим, что целый ряд средств массовой информации используются не просто как сливные бачки, а как оружие в этой информационной войне, которую без всяких сомнений я бы назвал неотъемлемым и одним из ключевых элементов тотальной гибридной войны, которую коллективный Запад во главе с Евросоюзом, его структурами и рядом воинствующих руководителей в Западной Европе ведет против Российской Федерации.
Now, that was, of course, Ushakov talking. Rybakov talking. Let's have a little look at Ushakov now.
Ну, сейчас, как вы знаете, все находятся или в Абу-Даби, или в Дубае. Там, в общем-то, вся публика там. Только мы с вами здесь в Бишкеке, и нам хорошо. А вся публика и почтенная, и не очень почтенная там. И среди вот этой публики были представители, которые вели серьезную работу. Это представители специальных служб Украины и России. Они периодически встречаются и обсуждают весьма щепетильные, я бы сказал, вопросы, в том числе касающиеся обмена пленными. Вот. И как бы в ходе встречи оказался и рояль в кустах. Это новый представитель США, который занимается сейчас украинским досье. Он там тоже появился и имел встречу, как я понимаю, с украинскими представителями. Наверное, это было договорено заранее. И также встретился и с нашими представителями совершенно неожиданно. Вот что там произошло в этом великом городе Абу-Даби.
С нашей стороны это Нарышкин?
Нет, с нашей стороны не Нарышкин, а представители соответствующих служб более низкого уровня, но которые занимаются практическими вопросами весьма, как ты сказал, сложными, щепетильными и так далее.
По итогам вот этих вот переговоров в Абу-Даби мы сможем иметь какое-то представление об этом так называемом мирном плане?
Нет, в Абу-Даби мирный план не обсуждался. Мирный план вообще еще по деталям ни с кем не обсуждался. Мы его видели, нам его передали, но еще обсуждения не было.
Вы передали по неофициальным каналам, сказал министр.
Каналам. Да.
То есть официальной бумаги у нас по-прежнему никакой нет?
Ну, да, официально нет, но бумага есть. Но мы ее еще ни с кем не обсуждали, потому что пункт требует действительно серьезного анализа, серьезного обсуждения. Ну, некоторые моменты на них можно посмотреть позитивно, но многое требует специальной дискуссии между экспертами.
Это, по-моему, вообще каждые 5 минут, каждый час вообще развиваются, меняются даже, да?
Ну да, все это, ситуация быстро разбирается, потому что ведь не только мы как бы участники этого процесса, хотя понятно почему мы, но и украинцы, и европейцы лезут все эти дела. Совершенно не нужно как-то представляться.
А если у нас бумага получена по неофициальным каналам, мы можем верить, что это та самая бумага?
Несколько бумаг, я сейчас даже не буду обсуждать несколько вариантов. Сейчас там кое в чем даже может запутаться. Но скажем так, какие-то последние версии к нам попали. Так я думаю, что последние версии. Но обсуждение, еще раз подчеркну, серьезного обсуждения между командами двух стран еще не было.
There we are. So he's actually turning around to you and saying, look, this is not happening. There is no discussions that have taken place. And we've got a man who's very, very close to Peskov. And Peskov has turned around, Peskov's man has turned around and told us that absolutely, as far as they're concerned, when this peace plan comes across in whatever form it will be in, do not expect any peace deal to happen very quickly in any way, any fashion whatsoever. Now, do also remember that our guy in the State Department is turning around and telling us that the State Department of America is briefing against Vitkov. Okay? It is briefing Axios. It is briefing the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, and it is doing it secretly and on the quiet to stop this deal. And they are all in on this. Marco Rubio has allayed the fears of the Europeans by saying, look, it's not going to go forward in the form that it's going in. And he's gone there and he's literally listened and thrashed out the details with the Ukrainian. So the original Trump document doesn't look anything like it is supposed to do. And anyone out there that thinks this is going to be some sort of peace deal. I'm going to award you this, and this is for you. You fell for it again award. Okay. Literally 3/4 of the people that are involved in this war do not want it to end. Okay. You fell for it again. There is no such thing as this peace deal ever going forward. Okay. And I'm going to give you some heads up on this. Stefanchuk has turned around and said that until Crimea is returned, he's in the obviously heavily Ukrainian, has never seen the front line in his life. And of course, he is in the Ukrainian parliament. He has turned around and said that until Crimea is returned, which is never going to happen, until Crimea is returned, of course, there is going to be no peace deal whatsoever under any circumstances. When we talk about the corruption, we are talking about Zelensky's head. She is not even under investigation. Zelensky's head of the president's office. Literally, she looks after Zelensky. There is a necklace worth $3.5 grand there, and a watch worth $29,000 there that she has got. Never mind the liposuction or the blistering of the lips. It is very, very unbelievable that these people are being protected because they are corrupt. And Levitt has said this. I'll get to you in a second, Sean. Caroline Levitt, over the past week, the United States has made tremendous progress towards a peace deal by bringing both Ukraine and Russia to the table. No, it hasn't. Russia are not at the table. There's been a couple of phone calls that have said, look, we're going to put this forward. Okay, we'll discuss it. When are we going to have a meeting? When are we going to see something that we agreed on Alaska on paper that we can seriously discuss and look at as a proposal? There are a few delicate but not insurmountable details. That is nonsense. As long as Ukraine are holding out on those various subjects, these details are insurmountable. It's utter nonsense that must be sorted out and will require further talks between Ukraine, Russia, and the United States. No, they don't. They require you to take the peace deal to the Russians and see what they will accept and what they won't accept. And once you've done that, you then must remove the details that they do not agree with, and then you must present that to the Ukrainians and say, this is the peace deal, otherwise we leave you on your own. They are not going to do that. They've already gone to the losers to see what they will accept, not the winners. John Murphy.
Well, that excuse me, that chap that was commenting before Peskov
Yes.
actually said they've received multiple copies of various copies of
Yes.
this peace plan.
They've got various copies, Sean, but not one that's been sent to them.
But nothing official.
No.
So none of them, in reality, if they're not official copies, they're not official peace plans. None of them are credible.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And while we're on the subject as well, just to let you know this, Sean, is Orban is being used to carry the US message to see if they will literally give some ground on various things that the Ukrainians are being put down. And of course, Orban having already had his fingers burned with the peace deal that was meant to take place in Budapest. And remember this, that Budapest was taken off the table because the Americans changed their minds because they couldn't get Zelensky and the rest to agree to the deal. They couldn't get Zelensky to agree to it. They then turned around and said, no, there's got to be a ceasefire. And they cancelled the Budapest conference because of that. So once again, they went to the Ukrainians to see what they would accept, not the Russians. Okay? Really, really important that we get that distinction out there because it is a massive one. And of course, there are many people turning around and saying, oh, this can't be right. It is right. And of course, this is going to go on and on and on. This is a peace deal that is a dead in the water peace deal because they've made it so. And the people that put this peace deal together are now going to be the ones who are going to be paying for it by being attacked left, right, and centre. John Mersheimer had this to say. Let's have a little look.
What the Europeans and the Americans do not understand is that this war is existential for the Russians. they think, people in the West think, that the Russians started this war because they have an imperialist bent. They wanted to conquer territory in Ukraine. They wanted to make Ukraine part of a greater Russia. And they didn't succeed, but, we can cut a deal where they get some territory and they'll be happy, and that's the end of the story. That's the way we think. But they don't understand that that's not what the Russians are thinking. From the Russian perspective, this is an existential threat, what's going on in Ukraine, and what the West is trying to do with regard to integrating Ukraine into the West, into NATO, into the EU, to turn it into a liberal democracy that's pro-Western. This is just unacceptable to the Russians. It's an existential threat. They view it as a threat to their survival. That means they're not going to compromise on their demands for ending the war. You read all the time that people in the West do recognize that Russia's demands have not changed. They've been the same since the war started. Well, that tells you something. It tells you that this is an existential threat from the Russian perspective, and that's why their demands haven't changed, and they're not going to change. They will fight it out on the battlefield. And Putin has made it clear that he actually prefers to fight this one out on the battlefield rather than to try to solve it diplomatically. He probably understands that all these diplomatic shenanigans are just a waste of time. He, of course, has to go along with it because he has to look reasonable both to his allies and to people in the West. But he surely knows that this is going nowhere, because again, the West just refuses to accept that from Russia's perspective, what's going on in Ukraine is an existential threat.
He's absolutely correct. And here's what we're going to say right now. And we're stating this on this channel. We've stated it right from the start, so you shouldn't be too shocked by this. As long as Marco Rubio is in charge of, or is part of any discussions whatsoever, there is going to be no peace deal that the Russians will accept. Not one, because he has already changed the original peace deal. He actually turned around and said that there was no European input or no Ukrainian extra peace deal that was on the table. That is an out-and-out lie. Okay, and there is a war going on at the moment inside the White House to get rid of Witkoff. And Witkoff is certainly losing that because he's up against Kellogg and all the rest of them. So this is the channel's position here. We've said it. We've already said this on the channel, and I'll say it again. This peace plan will amount to nothing. None of the sides in this war, US, the Ukraine, have a plan which they will all agree to. And the US is trying to continue to extend the longevity of this war by delaying the inevitable, which will be sorted out on the battlefield. It is in US foreign interest to keep Russia and Ukraine fighting, extend Russia, focus on China, combat and topple opposers to their hegemonic ambitions one by one, not all at once. And we're going to have some more on that in a short while. Hopefully, you have taken notice of what we've had to say on this channel over the past hour. We thank you for watching, but we've a lot more to get into, including showing videos that we cannot show because we would get banned. So what we're going to do is we're going to play you out. You can see this on Unprecedented TV, of course. We couldn't be joined by Paul Brooker this evening. I hope that's given you a proper insight into what's going on with this peace deal. So the narrative that's going to come out next, and we're saying this on the channel, look, the Ukrainians bent over backwards, we bent over backwards, America, to make a peace deal, and the Russians turned it down. Everything that we said about the Russians is completely correct, when it is completely false. Let's end with this.